and happy podcast day up there, gentlemen. We have a special guest with us for another week. We got Birdfinger, Zeb, and myself in the house. We're the Hawkscast.net podcast. Gentlemen, how's it going?
Going great. Good to be back. Except
you sound a
I
little
miss
bit,
Ross.
Yeah, you sound a little bit too enthusiastic after that thrashing that the Seahawks had on Sunday, but
I'm excited for the next game.
Right? Another championship opportunity, as some would say.
Yeah, exactly.
Unfortunately, Ross was not. He's not feeling too well this week, so he wasn't able to join. I don't think it's related to the Seahawks. We hope it's not. We hope it's just hopefully something he can recover from. Maybe the Thursday night game will make him feel better. But we are happy to bring back Birdfinger. Bill's back in the house. Zeb's back as well. I'm back in the house. And gentlemen, kind of a rocky game too. I mean, of all the things that could go wrong, pretty much everything went wrong.
It was a shit game. Let's just be honest about it. It's a shit game.
It was. I mean, I feel like even that feels a little bit too generous because like there were glimpses, right? Glimpses of like, oh, they know what they're doing. Like they're not totally out of it. But then every worst thing that could have happened. There was the 2 Wildcat plays where, Kenneth Walker, he ran like his life was on in danger, but he got 5 yards. Then they run in the same formation again, and DJ Dallas decides I'm going to just push this pop pass, and it's just this flat pass and goes directly into the defender's hands. There was the defensive player on special teams where he kind of kept pushing the number 37 into Tyler Lockett, and because he let up right at the last minute, they didn't call a penalty on it. I know that Ross and I we weren't arguing, but we were talking about whether or not that should have been a penalty, and
That should have been a penalty.
I don't think so. I think the
You think he did it just right?
Played it perfectly. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with Zeb. The guy basically let up a half yard before the the blocker got to Lockett. So even though it's his momentum that takes him into Lockett, he didn't push him into Lockett, so there's not that interference. Then you have what was the third turnover? The third turnover was the first one. That was Geno's interception. That was maybe a little bit of a rush play. Defender just made a good play. Ball got popped up in the air, and the ball got turned over. So, 3 unfortunate series. There were some key defensive tackling issues where on a few of the long runs, the Seahawks defenders has the running back or Debo at the line of scrimmage, and they lose. And then they end up gaining huge chunk yards. So their biggest play was on a busted tackle where Debo basically just went up the middle and was untouched until I think it was Tyreek that ended up catching him, number 27. But it wasn't. As Zeb said,
when we were a sure tackling team. Remember, one of our best qualities was that we were a great tackling team.
Yeah, I mean.
Wasn't all that long ago.
Those were the days,
Yeah.
But they're not these days.
They're definitely not these days. It was weird. So, I was watching that game, and until halftime, I thought, we're 1 score out. We just need to get this one drive, and we're going to be back in it. Because while I think San Francisco played a really strong game, their running game obviously helped them a lot, and they didn't have to really, push anything because they were really controlling every facet of the game. I feel like if the Seahawks hadn't messed up so many times, the penalty where Abe Lucas is a half yard too far downfield to be ineligible.
He was blocking his guy though, man.
He was blocking his guy, but as soon as he lets up, that's when it becomes a penalty. And it's I feel like they're making rookie mistakes, which I'm kind of okay with now. But that was the one explosive play. You had it to DK. DK just steals the ball out of the air, comes down with it. It was an amazing catch.
Yeah, it was a good catch.
It was like a 35-yard play that would have taken him down, like, pretty deep into San Francisco territory. But because it was one of those letter of the law playbook plays, they got the penalty. I talked to a couple of my more astute Seahawk line play people, and I told them, like, I feel like Seattle could not get anything. They couldn't get a single call when their defense was rushing. San Francisco got away with a lot of holds, and those more astute people, they said, yeah, they definitely allowed San Francisco to get away with a lot more than Seattle did. And I think the penalties actually reflected that as well. So we've been on the one side in the Denver game where we're getting no penalties, and now we're on the other side where we're getting all the penalties.
Yeah, it was like a day of makeup calls.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, all right, guys, Seattle, you guys got your one game against Russ. Now you guys are just fucked. You have all the penalties.
Pretty much.
Is that how either of you felt during that game? Like, I didn't want to turn the game off. It was still worth watching for me, even though they were realistically getting blown out. Even though it was take out Seattle's punt block for a touchdown, which was great. It was a 27-0 game because the offense didn't score at all.
Yeah, we probably deserved to get shut out the way we played.
I mean, it's a feat. Like, you really have to do everything wrong. Like, you have to turn the ball over when you're on the 7-yard line.
Yeah, the blocked field goal was awesome. That was great. It was obviously the best part of the game for us, but we didn't. I don't know. It was just a rough game. I won't say that I wanted to turn it off, but I was also at a lake on a fishing trip, and I kind of wanted to be back out on the lake fishing.
I mean, in a game like that, I would not blame you if you said, you know what, this game is going to end. The fish are not going to always be there. I should go check on this fish.
But you know what? That's not what we do. We stay with it. We stay through it. We support our team, right?
Yeah. Bert, I know you were listening to the game on the radio, correct?
Yeah, I had to watch a red zone.
Okay.
So,
well, you didn't get to watch a lot of the Seahawks if it was a red zone game, unless it was San Francisco, unfortunately.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, I got to see the wonderful DJ Dallas pass. So,
oof, of all the passes.
What was this all of a sudden? Let's just do a whole bunch of trick plays on one. Why?
4 running backs. I think it's because isn't that what Ken Walker did at Michigan State? Didn't they run those kind of plays?
I mean, I understand, like, in theory, but
I don't know why have DJ Dallas throw though.
Well, what's frustrating is that obviously most of us are like, don't run those stupid plays. But
yeah,
like, all that aside, if he throws a halfway decent pass there, it's a touchdown.
Yeah,
so DK was open.
Yeah. I mean, so this is what I heard on someone either tweeted this or heard it on someone else's podcast, and what I heard was, run your special plays, run your special team plays, run your trick plays, but don't make your players do things they're not used to doing. Like, if you're going to run like a fake punt, don't make your punter pass it. Do what you did last year with Travis Homer and let him just run. Like, do a direct snap to Travis Homer. He runs. He's a running back. Do that. If you're going to do a trick play, and because that's what that DK, the Geno to DK was. That was a trick play where they did like the double reverse, and then they threw it back to Geno, and then Geno bombs it to DK, and DK catches it. That's a trick play. That's Geno throwing the ball, your wide receiver catching the ball. DJ Dallas throwing that ball, I mean, that's a case where you see a quarterback and he's going to throw that ball no matter who's in front of him, no matter how the defense is playing. He's just like, yep, I got to my spot. I'm going to throw the ball. Credit to San Francisco for not biting and thinking like, yeah, this fool's not going to run. He's going to try and throw it. I'm just going to back up. And lo and behold, he gets that easy pick. So it was frustrating for sure.
And yet still probably should have been a touchdown. It's so silly.
Yeah, and that's crazy is like, so off of that play, I think Seattle forces a punt off of that play, so while they didn't score points, San Francisco didn't score off of it. But off of the other two turnovers, I believe Seattle ended up losing. They lost points because the San Francisco scored. I know they scored a touchdown on the muff punt that we had, so that was a huge game changer. And if anything, we know that Pete hates to turn the ball over. He hates coughing up the ball, and the Seahawks got embarrassed on Sunday as they lost to the 49ers in a remarkably uncompetitive game where our offensive scoring drought has now gone to 6 quarters since week 1. Seattle hopes to rebound against the winless Atlanta Falcons, who have been averaging over 27 points per game, but are losing in the most brutal fashion possible. Pete has said that the playbook is going to open up and more players are going to be available, but if the run game can't work and they can't score, will it matter? This is a Hawkscast.net podcast brought to you by the Hawkscast Forum. You can find us at hawkscast.net. Find us on Twitter at Seahawks Podcast, Seahawks Forum. And we're just going to jump straight into topic number 1. Zeb, I'm going to ask you first, what is the bigger early season concern? Are you more concerned about the defense or are you more concerned about the offense?
Well, I think at this point it has to be the defense. We're starting rookie offensive tackles and Geno Smith on offense. So I think anybody with super lofty expectations this early in the season is fooling themselves. On defense, however, you would kind of expect, I don't know, we made these changes. We promoted a new D coordinator. We've got a lot of young, talented, fast guys. Even if they're not executing scheme properly all the time or whatever, that you think that just the pure athleticism of some of these dudes would help to make up for some of that. And they're not tackling well. This switch over to sort of a 3-4 scheme seems to maybe not play to the strengths of some of our bigger guys up front. I don't know. But at this point, I don't expect a lot out of the offense. I expect that to be kind of sloppy and messy. The defense, though, this is where I think this team should be a little farther ahead than they are, in my opinion, and need to be in order for the offense to be able to struggle the way it's probably going to. The defense, if we're going to stay in some of these games and win some of these games, we really need the defense to step up and do better.
Bird, what about you? If you're going to say, like, hey, if there's one thing that I could focus on and help out with, is it the defense that you're more concerned about, or is it the offense you're more concerned about?
Well, it's really tough because everything works together. But I'll take the offense though. They got a young line, and what I mean by that, they have the 2 rookies, but we also got a brand new center. And they need time to gel. They need time to get together and just, work their things out. Because they're not opening up lanes to run in, and they're not really, well, they're kind of doing good pass protecting. I know Charles Cross got a couple sacks on him, but that's because Geno didn't step up, right?
Yeah, but, so in game 1, there was one where Geno could have stepped up and avoided the sack, because the guy was just getting pushed 10 yards down. I can't remember. I feel like the offensive line has done a decent job. Like, if this were Russ, I think we would have seen more sacks. But
yeah, we probably would have. Yeah. So also, I think the offense, they just need to stay on the field a little while longer, just to kind of help out the defense. They need to, sustain some drives. They need to get some first downs. They're not really doing that. I expect them to be better than they are, though. Hopefully, maybe when they open up the playbook a little bit, they'll have some better results. But right now, I want the offense to step it up a little bit.
Yeah, I think both of you have a really good point. On the defensive side, I look at it, it's like, look, we've gone through Chris Richard, we've gone through Ken Norton Jr., we've now gone to Clint Hurt. Is it really the defensive coordinator that's the issue? Tackling all of a sudden is like a huge problem. Like, we can get like a guy dead to rights behind the line of scrimmage or out the line of scrimmage, and we'll lose them. You know, and these are supposed to be our like linebackers, our edge rushers. Those guys should not be missing tackles in the open field. Those are the ones that you expect to be your best tacklers. On the offensive side, I don't know if we're trying to protect our rookie tackles, but they just do not seem like they are committed to the run. There is no opportunity for rhythm. There's no chance for them to gel. I think they're doing a pretty good job of providing Geno plenty of time to pass. I think the problem that we're seeing, and we'll talk about that a little bit in the next topic, is if Geno's going to complete 80% of his passes, but they're going to average 5 to 6, 7 yards, that's not going to push the ball down the field. Yeah, that's going to like dink and dunk all day long, but eventually we're going to see the issue where, you know, on that critical third and short, and you can't complete that 5-yard play, you know, and the defense is giving you looks, then I think that's a problem. I would personally lean a little bit more towards the offense because Clint Hurt is a first-year defensive coordinator, so I'm willing to give him a little bit more of a pass. I actually suggested this topic idea of, was Sam right that Shane Waldron is not a good offensive coordinator? I think that trick play is a great example of, what are you doing, man? Like, that does not look like Seahawk football with the team that we have built. Like, why aren't we trying to run the ball? What's the point of re-signing Rashad Penny and drafting Kenneth Walker if we're not going to put the ball in their hands? So I have a lot of questions, more questions about how the offensive scheme is set up versus like what we're trying to do on defense. Because I get what we're trying to do on defense, we just didn't do it well. The offense, we're not doing it well, but I also don't know what they're doing. So I'm leaning towards the offensive as being the bigger earlier season concern for me.
Who do you hold those trick plays against the most? Waldron or Coach Carroll?
So
he had to okay it.
Yeah, Zeb, do you want to go first on this one?
I mean, yeah, I don't know how much control does Waldron have play calling wise? Does he have to run everything by Pete, or is he just out there calling what he sees? Because that's a lot of trick plays on one drive. I don't know. It's weird. I don't understand it. It's odd.
It's weird. My gut is that Pete says, "Hey, this is the sandbox I want you to play in. If it's in the sandbox, it's fine." And maybe like, hey, when they're going for the fourth down, like, hey, we got a trick play, we're gonna run. We think it's gonna beat it, and that's when they do it. But for the most part, I don't think Pete's involved in like which play is getting run and which way is not. He's in the headset. He knows what's being called, but I've never gotten the impression that Pete is any of his coordinators' ears saying like, hey, do this, do that.
I will say in some of the mic'd ups, I've heard him directly, especially back in the Bevel days, tell Bevel exactly what to do.
Yeah.
Or, you know, I mean, I think one in particular time it was give it to the big guy, you know, telling him to hand it off to Marshawn Lynch.
Right. Hey, you know what? I'm pretty sure we all love Marshawn, and like if we had the opportunity, it's like, yeah, give the ball to Marshawn. That would always be our go-to.
Yeah, always. Even
3rd and 25, let's give it to Marshawn. He can do something with it.
Give it to the big guy.
Line at the end of the Super Bowl, give it to.
Well, let's move on because we are kind of inching towards the topic. And topic number 2, Bird, this is going to start with you. Yeah. Is Pete Ball still a viable football strategy? So just to kind of help set up the stage of what Pete Ball is, Pete Carroll wants to play a team-style defense where you're playing close games, you are controlling the ball, you don't turn it over, you run the ball a lot, and you play really stout defense, a lot of bend, don't break, and we've seen that already in the early part of the year. And then you want a quarterback that can take the air over the top and, you know, hit big explosive play action plays. You know, once teams are kind of creeping up, that's when you kind of go over the top. that's kind of what Pete Ball is. And we saw that excel really in the early part of the Russell Wilson, Bobby Wagner, Legion of Boom era. And then there's been this evolution. And now we are seeing kind of that reset with the people that they've drafted, the style of offense and defense we think they want to play. But Bert, is this still a viable way to win a football game? I'm looking at all these other teams. Like for the people that play fantasy, there are other teams that are scoring by the truckload. But Pete's offense, the way that he wants to win, it's not about putting up 30 points a game. It's about like, hey, we're going to play a smash mouth, really close game where both teams aren't going to break 20 points sometimes. Is this what is good for the Seattle Seahawks?
No, that's the question, isn't it? I think it can still work. The thing is, you have to have all of the tools necessary. You have to have the complete team together. And I think, especially for this year, I don't think the offensive line is ready to play Pete Ball, and I don't think the defense, especially with their tackling issues, are ready to play Pete Ball. I don't think we're there yet to play his style of ball. I don't know if we have the quarterback either. I think this is just all about just setting guys up to get some success under their belt and kind of lay the groundwork for what's going to be happening probably next year when we draft a quarterback, presumably, or just like that. Kind of petered out there at the end.
If you were to build a team and you had the chance to emulate any football, is Pete Carroll's style of football one that you would say, like, this is the model that I would want?
Well, it's tough because the model like the Buffalo Bills have is pretty damn exciting. That's fun to watch.
Is that what you... But let's just assume you are Jody Allen's boyfriend. She said, yeah. Bird, I bought this team called the Seattle Seahawks. It's finally under my name. I want you to be my general manager. How are you building this team? Are you going to copy and say, like, yeah, we're going to go for a Buffalo Bills style of team?
I may.
Okay.
I may, but I still believe in what they're doing in running the ball and making the game shorter and playing good defense. It just seems like when you go high flying, it seems like it can fly right back in your face a lot. When you can control more of what you can control with the running game and with a strong defense, then you kind of have more. You're in more of a position to dictate the game. You know what I mean?
Sure. Zeb, is Pete Ball still a viable football strategy?
I think that the strategy is viable, but I think we're learning that it's very based on having the right personnel. Like, you go back and look at some of those LOB teams, and now I'm talking strictly on defense here for a second. That defense was phenomenal, but it was filled with phenomenal players. Like, you could get away with a Byron Maxwell on one side, but that's because you have Richard Sherman on the other and Earl Thomas over the top, and guys like Cliff Averill and Michael Bennett rushing the passer, and a guy like Cam back there threatening people's lives. And the guy like Bobby running the show. Like, we were so spoiled that we had literally Hall of Fame caliber players just about everywhere on that defense. And in a situation like that, Pete Ball is perfect, right? You're not asking that much of your offense, and you can still go out there and win games and win championships. I think they're trying to recreate that now, but I don't know if the personnel is correct. And, there's different kind of systems in this league, right? You got systems like Pittsburgh and New England where personnel isn't necessarily all that important. You kind of can plug and play because the system runs so well. I don't think that Pete's system is like that. Now, granted, the Steelers and the and the Patriots had Hall of Fame quarterbacks running the show for decades, and I think we're going to see that having a guy like Geno is probably not going to be enough to put you over the top, even with, say, a top tier defense. You really have to have everything in place for a guy like Geno to be able to take you into the playoffs, and I don't think we're there. So I think the strategy, the system can still work, but you have to get the right personnel, and I don't know if we do at this point. And it going forward, we're going to need to see a lot of improvement out of these young guys for it to work.
Yeah, I think this is where the people that are not Pete Carroll fans, my father-in-law being one of them, we had some snide comments going back and forth after that first win, and I'm sure he's holding back on a few more.
Family beef.
Yeah, but yeah, it's interesting because when it works, it's great. But what we're seeing is those gaps, those personnels, or the misses, like those are what really crush its progress. Like there are certain times where you could have anyone in a certain position because everyone else around them is so good, they're going to get elevated too. But if you have too many pockets or too many players that just aren't what you need, then it kind of requires that you're almost perfect in your entire personnel composition, whether you're drafting, whether you're trading, whether you are, signing them off the street. And I feel that this is where what Pete wants to do, and the reason why I think Pete wants to do this is because it's really economical. You can build a team in a relatively manageable, cheap way. The Seahawks, for Pete Carroll's entire existence with John Schneider, they've never run into huge cap issues where they're up against the wall and they can't do what they want. They've definitely had to make some sacrifices and say like, hey, we brought this guy, so we're letting this guy go. But we've never heard these long-standing stories of like, oh yeah, the Seattle Seahawks are $100 million below, under the cap, and need to cut or restructure everybody to get, stay afloat. Yeah. And that's, I think, one of the things where they try to play that quote-unquote Moneyball style where say, look, we're not going to invest heavily in the offensive line because college offensive linemen suck anyway, so... And where we're going to draft, we're not going to get great ones anyway, so let's focus on other positions before we go here. And this is where the critique of Pete Carroll and his style of football philosophy, I think, really come to a head, because it only takes a few mistakes to say, like, see, that's where Pete's wrong. See, that's where Pete's style of football is old. You can't win in the NFL in 2022 this way. Zeb, I forgot to ask you, if you had a team to build a new football team or to pace to the Seahawks, would you want it to be Pete Ball?
At this point, no. Again, I think Pete Ball worked for a very specific reason. It's because we had top-tier talent all across the board, particularly on the defense. And unless you know that you can stock your team with those kind of players, I don't know that the system is going to work. So I think Pete, early in his career here with the Seahawks, had some pretty good insight on the guys he wanted to come play because of his time in college, and that's all that only lasts a couple of years, right?
Right.
And so I think without that, it just doesn't seem like it. I hope to be proven wrong. I hope, Brooks and all these guys on defense are the answer. But until we see it happen, I'm starting to doubt it.
Yeah. I will make a confession. Whenever I play Madden football, I always build my team in the Pete Carroll style. So I think it is only fair for me to say that I do believe in Pete Ball. Obviously, it's very different from a video game standpoint versus real life, but I do try and copy that, where 60% of my salary is always going to be geared toward my defense. I'm always trying to get the best corners, the best safety, the best rushers. That's what I feel wins in a video game. I don't think it's possible in real life, and that's where what Pete's trying to do, I think, has limitations and runs into those opportunities like we've talked about earlier. So I still think it's viable for this team. Whether or not it's going to work at the end of this year, I think that will be something to be said. But I still think that this model for what they're building for this year, for 2022 and for 2023, I think it could work. I like the tackles. I like the fact that our offensive line, even though it's young, I feel it's promising. I wish they were a little bit better at running the ball, but, you know, that's one of the knocks against Cross and Lucas is, you know, they both came from passing offenses. So running the ball wasn't like something that they were really, really gifted at or required to when they played in college.
Right.
Yeah, it seems like Lucas has kind of caught on to it though with those pancake blocks he's had.
Yeah, I mean, I would say of any like the three rookies that have been playing, I'm happy to see them make the mistakes this year because the hope is that they're going to get better. Shout out to Tyreek Woolen for blocking a field goal. He almost outrun the dude that recovered the ball. Mike Jackson recovered the block kick, ran it in for a touchdown, and Tyreek Woolen had to slow up because he was like, yeah, I'm going to let you run in before me because you've got the ball and I don't. So Tyreek Woolen's speed is legit for sure.
Yeah.
Fast, man.
Final thoughts about Pete Ball and football strategy.
I still have faith and trust in Pete. I think he still can. I think his biggest strength is his role as a motivator, and we saw the Seahawks get up for that game against Russell. So I think he still has the ability to get his guys to play above their station.
Yep.
I was wondering. I don't know how to say this really, but I was wondering about the dynamic between John Schneider and Pete when it comes to trying to bring in talent and either bringing in talent or his faith or in Pete's faith, he can coach talent up. You know what I mean?
That's interesting. I think there's one area where I feel like Pete has always found ways to like kind of revitalize someone's career, and it's always in the secondary. You look at Quandre Diggs. Quandre Diggs was not a household name. Obviously, we know him because we're fans, but
yeah,
they got him on a super cheap deal. You know, Minkah
for
Fitzpatrick.
$5.
Yeah, Minkah Fitzpatrick was available first round picks, I believe, and Seattle got Quandre Diggs, and Quandre Diggs, I feel, has had as much success as Minkah Fitzpatrick.
Yeah,
we see all the corners that he's brought into the system that no one has heard of. A lot of them reclamation projects. Like, you know, DJ Reed was cut. He was trying to get stashed on an injured reserve roster, and Seattle was like, "Hey, we'll take this guy." He got a huge fat contract from the Jets, and before that, we had Justin Coleman, who got a big fat contract from the Lions, and he's back with the team too. So. Yeah. Pete can find guys in secondary.
The Minkah Fitzpatrick thing, I think we already had Diggs.
Did we already have Diggs before that trade?
Minkah Fitzpatrick is the guy that we could have had instead of Jamal, and we went with Jamal.
Oh.
And Minkah ended up going to Pittsburgh for, I believe, way less than we gave up for Jamal Adams.
I believe the difference, though, is Minkah Fitzpatrick was active. That was a trade that happened in the middle of the season.
Yeah, it was early in the year.
Before the draft. So I think that impacts like draft capital as well. But yes, I think all of us have to kind of assume that, the Jamal Adams trade, regardless of intentions at the time of the trade, have definitely made Seattle look worse and worse, because the fact that he's not on the field, that makes Seattle lose that trade. Doesn't matter what you used to acquire him, doesn't matter what you're paying him. If he's not on the field, it doesn't really matter what he does if he's not there.
Yeah, you have don't even have the chance to contribute.
Yeah.
But I do remember that offseason, Minkah Fitzpatrick was an option of somebody that we would maybe have gone after. And, obviously, hindsight, but like at this point, would you go back in time and switch that around? I know I would.
Yeah, I think it would be really hard not to. So Minkah Fitzpatrick played 2 games for Miami and then got traded to Pittsburgh, and then he finished the final 14 games with Pittsburgh in 2019.
Yep.
So he was traded the year before Jamal Adams was. Is that correct? Oh, no.
No.
Jamal was traded at the beginning of the 2019 season.
Yeah.
Wait, is that? I thought it was.
I don't know. Now I'm confused.
No, because Jamal Adams was traded to us prior to the 2020 season. That's when we went 12-4, and then he got injured the following year in 2021.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. Then we could have had Minka. Steelers got him. If then that next offseason
if we had traded for him in the 2019 season, then we could have, yeah.
Instead, we gave up a king's ransom for Jamal Adams.
Yeah, that's what happens when you're trying to get that one missing piece.
Man, God, he's so close to being it, and then he just can't stay on the field.
Yeah, I mean, I would have loved if his final play, at least this year, was a sack on Russ. He was so close too.
He was so close. That's such a strange injury too.
Yeah, it's really weird because
he's reckless, man. Like, I get it. I love the enthusiasm, but you have to be a little bit careful with your body, right?
Yeah.
Like, he just throws himself around. I appreciate it, but, man, be a little bit smarter.
But that's why we love guys like Chris Carson as well. It's like, look, that guy's just, like, willing to throw his body there into the line. It's just awesome. Like, yay. But it's like the injury is just... They're so easy to happen. And I think that's what's so frustrating about it all.
Yep.
All right, well, let's move on to topic number 3. This is the Hawkscast Corner, and in the same mindset that both of you are now the respective boyfriends of Jody Allen and have quick control. Zeb, what's the quick fix for the Seahawks? If you could change anything before this game and say, like, hey, this is the one thing I'm going to do, and it's going to help Seattle to win, what would you do? What's that quick fix?
Well, I don't think there is one. And
Zeb, sorry, we got to reset. We got to reset the mindset. We are in this positive Pete Carroll. Quick fix will help us in week 3.
Listen, there's no quick
I don't
fix.
want any logical. I don't want anything logical. I don't want anything tempered to realism. I want to know, what are you... I'm giving you a Harry Potter wand, and we're making a quick fix. What is it?
Like a serum to make all of our players into the best at their position.
All right, done. Boom. Right.
No, but the reality is there's no quick fix. It's hard to accept, but we are going to watch this team struggle for some time. We have to let the plan unfold. We need to let some of these players get experience, some of these coaches get experience, figure out who works where, why, and how. And it's going to be hard for a while. There's going to be ups and there's going to be downs. But I think the quickest fix is waiting and not panicking and not, giving up. We have to let these guys develop. I think one thing that could help us be more competitive in football games this season is to commit to running the football. We need it's not always going to work, but you have to make sure the other defense believes that you're going to try to run the football. If they don't think you're going to try to run, you're screwed. And I think the problem right now is that our stable of running backs are oft injured and slightly less talented than the average NFL running back, respectively. I think because Penny Walker hasn't been healthy and because Penny has the history of not being healthy, they are forced to not run that much. And like you said, with our new rookie left tackles, our rookie tackles not necessarily being the best at run blocking, they're more of pass blockers. I think they've decided to just back off for a while and just do what we can. Hopefully, as the season goes on, we can get more to that run game. Like Bird mentioned earlier, let the defense rest a little bit, get some sustained drives. Even if they don't end in points, I think it's going to help us to stay, to be more competitive than particularly we were this last weekend against the 49ers.
All right. Bird, it is your time to wave the magic wand. Zeb is taking the running game. What is your quick fix to help the Seahawks win?
Quick fix. Well, first define quick.
Yeah.
I mean, you put a PowerPoint slide on the presentation. It's like, all right, one slide, guys. This is what we're doing. It's like, oh, that makes sense. We're going to win on Sunday.
You have to go to. Jeez, what would you do? Execution. Do your job.
Okay. There you go. See,
Like
pulling teeth, guys.
Yeah. Yeah. You just have to. Yeah, just have to try and just kind of forget everything else, and do what you're supposed to do. Mind your footwork. Mind your little things you're supposed to do in practice, and then go out there and just let it go on game day, and just do what you're supposed to do. Let the rest take care of itself.
Why do you think that isn't something that we're seeing? Because we're seeing the Seahawks do certain things. We're seeing them try to set up the run, but they're not able to do it. Geno's hitting, 80% of his passes, but they're not going far downfield. What is that execution that you think the team is missing?
Well, I think it's a lot of it is. That's a difficult question for me, actually. Yeah, you're gonna have to come back to me on that one.
No, fair enough. I know I'm putting the screws on everyone here. I think both of what you said are actually really, really great points. Running the ball and execution, I think, are really, really easy to coach up, easy to focus on as you're preparing for a team that is going to be probably as desperate, probably more so than you are, because the way that they're 0-2, they can't get to 0-3. Like that changes the structure of a team for the rest of the year to start an entire season without a win. So, but I think if you can say hey, our focus is we're going to execute the run, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and this is how we're going to do it, and this is what we want to see in practice, and if you can't see it, you might lose your spot in the rotation. I think those are probably the best things to do. If I were to add to it, we talked about it earlier, I think it was just tackling. I feel like if the Seahawks just got a handle of their tackling, that would be the issue. And it's not like they're in terrible position where they're grasping at air. They're just losing containment on a guy that's a 1.5 feet in front of them, and they're not able to drive themselves into the offensive player to take them down. They're just allowing, them to slip by. So I feel like that would be a quick fix, and I feel like that's something you could actually focus in on during your prep for the week, especially now that you're not on a short rest. You're going from Sunday to Sunday as opposed to Monday to Sunday on the road. So that would be my quick wave of a wand to try and help the team win.
Did the Seahawks get a late start on tackling? I remember hearing stuff about preseason that they weren't really practicing tackling so much, like taking people to the ground.
So the thing that I've heard from a lot of people that kind of do more research and have more of a football background is that the new CBA, especially that we have 3 preseason games now, is teams are much more hesitant to do the full contact stuff because they can either get in trouble, because Seattle has gotten in trouble for being too physical at some of its practices. So they've collectively bargained to make practices less. They've collectively bargained to take pads away so that way teams can't go full out. So that has probably hurt some teams that don't have the reps, don't have a clear understanding. But the ones that are missing tackles, they're not rookies. These are guys that have played in the league. They've gotten snaps before. Darryl Taylor's out. He's got a full year under his belt. He shouldn't be missing tackles that open in the field. So I don't know if there's a great answer as to why we're not seeing them get those tackles the way they should, but I think there is definitely a component of the fact that they're not allowed to practice with pads on in preseason and in training camp. Obviously, they can tackle in the game, but there's not enough reps to go around based upon what they need to see for judging their roster. So I think it is a problem. I don't know if anyone has quantified how bad it's made it for some teams.
I agree with you.
Nice. Score one for
tackle.
me.
If we could tackle,
Yeah.
which as a professional football defense you think would be pretty high on the list.
You think that would be like a given, right?
Right. If we could tackle and we ran the football about 50% more than we have, and like we it's just funny that like we're still putting the ball in Gino's hands to win us games. Like this is exactly what we all wanted to get away from, was just to have a point guard for a quarterback, run the ball, play good defense. Don't rely on your quarterback to have to go win you games. And yet here we are.
Yeah, it's rough, you know. So
I was going to mention something about Pete Ball. I was listening to, there was Richard Sherman has a podcast, and he was talking with KJ Wright, and that came out today. And I listened to a little bit of it, and KJ Wright, they were mostly the parts I was hearing, they were talking about some tea with Russell Wilson. But the other thing was that they were talking about ways to win the game when it comes to Pete Ball, and that's completing 20 runs and getting 20 completions in a game.
yeah,
And if you do that, then your chances of winning raise exponentially.
Yeah, I forget what number Pete uses for that, but I do recall him using that number before. I forget what the actual breakdown of that is, though. But yeah, I don't know if you also heard what both of them said in regards to how Russell is treated. I don't know if either of you caught that.
Yeah.
So for those of you that haven't heard, I don't think it's anything new, but both Richard and Sherm alluded to the fact that Russell was held to a much lower standard, and it definitely rubbed some players the wrong way.
Yeah. That's it. And he wasn't much younger than the defensive guys.
No,
he was like a year younger.
Yeah, KJ said that, and he said, like, you know, this guy, he's only a year younger than both of us. I mean, it's not. I don't think he's a year younger in years, but maybe age wise, he was just a year younger, because it was rough. Final thoughts on a quick fix for the Seahawks.
Got to be in it for the long haul.
In it for the long haul. I agree.
Yep.
All right, so we are going to move on to topic number 4, which is the Atlanta Falcons. I have a special clip that I'm going to play. Gentlemen, I don't know if you can hear it, but I'll be able to reiterate what it is, so we're going to try this out real quick.
Okay.
Listen, all I'm going to say is hopefully this is going to be Kyle Pitts' bounce back game. I'm excited to see him play. I have a feeling he's going to go off for about 8 catches. He's about to score again. I think Atlanta's going to get their first win this week, but shout out to Hawkscast, man. Shout out to them. Shout out to the boys for the podcast, man. I appreciate you guys wanting me on. Sorry I couldn't be on. And, man, rise up. Go Falcons, man. Sorry you guys got to lose to us.
All right, so I had my friend who is a...
Listen, all I'm going to say is hope...
He's a YouTuber. He's a Twitch streamer, kind of like how we do our podcast. His name is You Love Nick Tana. He is a Madden streamer, so he plays a lot of football. He's an Atlanta Falcons fan, so we talk a lot about the Falcons when I jump on his stream and chat up with him. So he basically said he thinks that the Falcons are going to win. He thinks that Kyle Pitts is going to be the difference in the game, and he apologizes that he wasn't able to be on the podcast, but he did have some nice things to say about us and about the podcast. So shout out to Nick for getting that clip for us. But the question that I want to ask, Bird, Which team is going to make a switch at quarterback first? Is it going to be the Atlanta Falcons, the 0-2 Atlanta Falcons, or is it going to be the 1-1 Seattle Seahawks?
I don't see the Seahawks making a switch from Geno for quite some time. He would really have to bomb to do it. Mariota's playing decently. Not lights out, but if I have to pick one, I would probably say that Atlanta would go to the youth movement a little quicker than we would move to lock.
Zeb, I don't. We'll circle back because I have some other comments about that. But if you were to place a bet, are you putting money on the Falcons to make a shift to Desmond Ridder, the rookie, or would you put a bet on the Seahawks to go to Drew Lock?
I think I agree with Bird, with the exception that I don't really know what I don't know what the Falcons are doing. I don't know what their philosophy. I don't know much about their coach.
So just to kind of paint some background, so Arthur Smith is their head coach. I believe that's his name, Arthur something. He is in the model of a Mike Tomlin. So he wants to, he's very similar to Pete in that he builds like a culture. He wants the, certain style of players to play for his team. He fosters a culture that the players enjoy. They all love playing for him. And that also means that the type of players that they want leading, especially for the Falcons, according to the beat reporter from The Athletic, that's the model that they're trying to emulate. They're trying to be like a Pittsburgh Steelers type of organization and how they build that roster. So focus on the run, strong defense, control the clock.
What a coincidence.
Yes.
Wow.
I don't see Pete going away from Geno unless he gets Trey Lanced or
ouch. Yeah.
Yeah, I just feel like he has committed to him, and every word he says about him is just strengthening that commitment. Again, I don't think it's about winning games right now. So I don't see us switching to Drew Lock anytime soon, and with the idea that maybe he could provide a spark and we're going to win some games and make a playoff push. I just don't think that's where we're at right now.
What would it take for Seattle to make a switch at quarterback? I know we're only into week 2. I'm with both of you guys. I don't think there's anything that I can see that would cause Pete to turn away from Geno. The Falcons, they're probably a few weeks away from turning over to Desmond Ridder as well. I think the most interesting thing is that of all the quarterbacks to play first, for a rookie quarterback to play meaningful snaps in the NFL, it was Malik Willis in Tennessee when they're getting shellacked on Monday night. He came into the third quarter, so not a great sign if you were on the Titans are going to win it all this year if you're seeing your rookie quarterback in the third quarter in a blowout. So
yeah, I just I guess there is a scenario where if everything was coming together here and the defense started playing great and the running game was clicking, and the reason why we were losing games is because Geno wasn't playing well, then I could see them doing something. Maybe, although I don't know that Lock's the answer.
How would you categorize not playing well? Because I think to me there is a caveat when it comes to Geno not playing well versus Drew Lock not playing well. I think we saw that in the preseason.
Well, yeah, I think I'm just if the defense was playing strong and getting off the field and creating turnovers, and we were able to run the football, and then Geno would throw a pick at the wrong time, or not be able to connect to his wide receivers for whatever reason. Like we all know Geno's not a world beater. We know who he is. We know what his qualities are. If you can do all those things around him correctly, he can win football games. So if we got to that, I don't think we're going to get there this year, but if we happen to get to that point and he's the weak link, maybe they switch it up. Maybe they try it. I don't know. I don't think they think Drew Lock's the future either. So I don't know that going to him would make much of a difference anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we are going to be in a situation for at least the next few weeks where we're going to see that up and down. It's going to be a roller coaster of a year because there's going to be so much more question marks. Drew Lock is perennially going to be the most popular person to talk about on podcasts, in articles, on news radio, in print media, when it comes to like, well, what's a quick fix? What could we do to change things up? Could throwing out someone like Drew Lock that will push the ball down the field, but will also turn the ball over, is that enough? Because there is something to be said about losing a ball game like 35-30 versus losing a ball game where you can't even score. So your defense can't be on the field for that long. I think that's been one of the sore spots about this offense, is that we're seeing kind of a repeat of last year where we're not seeing a commitment to the run. The quarterback is not able to make the big plays to push the ball forward, and the defense is just getting dragged around way too much. So I do think that it is unlikely for us to see a switch at quarterback, especially from Geno. The Falcons, I do agree, they have much more to gain by playing Desmond Ridder early than they do like saving him for the end of the season.
Yeah, I think they're probably closer to being just the quarterback away, maybe. I mean, I don't think they're not great either. They haven't been very good for a long time, but they seem like they'd be more in the position to do something like that.
Did either of you catch the Falcons' 2 games, like just either like a highlight of their week 1 loss to the Saints or the week 2 comeback loss against the Rams?
Yeah, just the highlights is all I've seen.
Yeah. 16-point loss. They had a 16-point lead against the Saints in week 1, and then they end up losing that game. They were down like 3 scores against the Rams, and they came back, and they were a touchdown away, but ball ends up going too high, and Jalen Ramsey just high points the ball over the Falcons wide receiver and seals the game with a pick. So pretty crazy way to lose a football game. I would not enjoy being a Falcons fan if that's the season I'm going to be in store for. So shout out to Nick if that's what he's dealing with, and he has been dealing with.
Shout out, Nick.
Yeah. Final thoughts on the Atlanta Falcons. I know we're obviously not super versed in them, but they are going to be here Sunday.
I'm concerned about Kyle Pitts just because I don't know who we're going to put on him.
So Kyle Pitts,
he hasn't really come through.
Kyle Pitts
this
is
year
like,
yet.
He is. I think I put the stat out when I was talking to Nick earlier. He's got like 4 catches on 10 targets for like 38 yards. He hasn't done a whole lot of anything.
He's
but Nick said the same thing. Nick says that he's gonna get like 5 catches, 60 yards, and a touchdown at least. That's his prediction. So,
especially, I don't think we have a linebacker that could match up with him. We'll have to be in like nickel or something and put a little guy on him.
Yeah, that will be really interesting to see what they do, because if they try to make him their go-to, then that could be a bad mismatch for Seattle. Also, their wide receiver, I think it's who's their wide receiver that they have? Drake London. He's on my fantasy team. He played well last week, so we'll see if he
got
continue.
a lot of targets.
But I'm pretty confident with Tariq Woolen. I think Tariq Woolen's played really well as a rookie. I'm not ready to say that this is not like the path forward. I think Tariq Woolen at corner is very promising.
Yeah. I just want to mention real quick, this is just for me. Like, I've always been a Seahawks fan, but in the early 90s, the Falcons had a squad that was so enjoyable to watch. I mean, obviously it started with Deion Sanders, but guys like Andre Rison and Tim McKyer and Jesse Tuggle, Mike Haynes. Like, this was a squad. This team was so fun to watch.
Was Jeff George a quarterback then?
It was Chris Miller at the time. This was
Chris Miller,
yeah.
Oregon Duck. Yeah.
Yep. It was just a cool team. Andre Bruce playing linebacker, man. I mean, Jesse Tuggle, one of the greatest of all time. But it was so much fun that for a brief moment, I enjoyed watching the Falcons more than I enjoyed watching the Seahawks, and that hasn't happened many times throughout my life. Like I'm diehard, and always have been. But God, that team was so much fun. I have really fond memories of that squad.
I was a big fan of the Falcons' Dirty Bird. I was really rooting for them when they played the Broncos in the Super Bowl. I was very disappointed.
Yeah.
But it's all right. Awesome. So let's get on to some predictions here real quick. Right. So Zeb, I'm gonna let you start. Final score: Falcons at Seahawks. The Seahawks are currently a 2.5-point favorite.
Seahawks 27, Falcons 23.
All right. Seahawks win and they cover. Bird, what is your final score in this bird football game?
Yeah. I don't see it being very high scoring. I'm thinking 17-13 Seahawks.
That is a very low scoring game.
Yeah.
I'm 0 for 2 in football this year, I believe.
Yeah.
So in the season, so probably use some reverse psychology. I think it will be a close game. I definitely think the Seahawks are going to have to score this week. They have to.
Yeah,
they have to. So I'm going to say they squeak out a win, 21-19. Falcons try and go for a late 2-pointer, and defense comes through, shuts it out. Seattle wins on the final play, which is a very Seahawk-like way to play a game. Zeb, what is here's the over-under. What's the over-under Seahawks rushing attempts? 14.5. Are you going more or less?
I have to say it has to be over. It has to be over.
I mean, if they're going to get into the high 20s, yeah, they got to do something, right?
Yeah, I mean, if they want to compete in the game, it has to be over.
Bird, what about you? You 14.5. They only had I think they only had 15 in that last game.
It's gonna be over. It's gonna be over. I think I always want to say Ken Norton, but it's Ken Walker. He's feeling better, and he's gonna show it. He's gonna show out this game. It's gonna be over. It's gonna be about 20-22.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just to kind of highlight, there in 2 games we have had 33 rushing attempts from our 4 running backs. 18 from Penny, 8 from Gino, 3 from Travis Homer, and 4 from Ken Walker. That's what you want to see in a game, not over 2 games. So
yeah, that's just. I mean, again, I think they're holding back because they're worried about health. It's the only thing that makes any sense to me.
Yeah, I think it's one of those. They have to run the ball. They have to find a way to get into rhythm. And, this is not saying hey, when it's 3rd and 20, run the ball, or when it's 3rd and 10, run the ball. It's no, run the ball effectively. Figure out your blocking. Execute like Bird.
Run enough that the defense believes that you might run every time.
Zeb, over under Gino's percentage completion percentage 75.5. He's on a tear right now. He is at 81% on the year. Is it going to drop?
Yeah, I mean, it'll be under. I still think he'll be good. I think he'll be, up there. But I think that's a tough 80+% is tough to go for the long haul.
It's kind of unheard of. Bert, what about you? 75.5 over under Gino's completion percentage.
I'm going under on that one.
Okay. Yeah. I'm gonna go over. I know Pete says they want to push the ball. I know Pete says that they're gonna open the playbook, but there's no reason to think they couldn't have done that in the previous 2 weeks. So, I think they're gonna continue to get those low yardage, high completion opportunities because Gino doesn't want to turn the ball over. He doesn't want. He's not a guy that makes that mistake. So I don't think we're really going to see them push the ball downfield because they really haven't really done that all year long so far. So I don't see that changing yet. And the final prediction, over under Kyle Pitt receptions, 4.5. Nick said that he was going to get like 6, so he's on the over. Zeb, where are you at with Kyle Pitts?
Yeah, I can see it. I'll go over.
Bird?
Definitely over. Yeah, he's going to have a day.
19 receptions.
I mean, he's getting the targets.
Or
He's just not catching them. That's kind of been his problem so far this year. So he's getting targets. He's just not getting those receptions. So I think he's gonna until they prove me wrong. And he's not on my fantasy team, so I don't really care. I'm gonna say he's not gonna get his receptions. He's gonna be just under. He's gonna get 3. So he'll be 1.5 away from the splitting that. And gentlemen, those are our predictions for the day.
Nice.
Well done.
Final thoughts on this upcoming game. It's a 1:00 game in Seattle. I think the forecast is pretty favorable, so nothing crazy expected to happen. But it's Seahawks football. It's always fun, and I'm looking forward to it.
I just want to see improvement in all the areas where we've been struggling so far. It's fine if we don't win the game. I can live with it. But I want to see these guys come together and get better and just play more consistently.
That would be ideal.
I think this is going to be we had one game we played well. Gino played well. And then we had another game when it was a complete disaster. I think those are probably two extremes. We're probably going to see more what we actually are in this game.
I'd be right.
Yeah.
It would be a great opportunity now that we've gotten over the emotions of Russell Wilson and we've gotten our first divisional game out of the way. If this is the game where this is where they say this is a statement like, hey, this is how we're going to play our football for the rest of the year. If that's what they do, win or lose, I think that's something that people can get behind, and I'm excited and looking forward to that. Gentlemen, time for some shout-outs.
I got a couple shout-outs. Shout out to Steve Broussard and Mike Pritchard, who were both on that early 90s Falcons team, and both finished their careers with pretty good years in Seattle with the Seahawks with a lot of positive contributions. So shout out to both of those dudes.
Nice. Bird, any shout outs today?
Yeah, I got a shout out to Sean Alexander. He's been slated to go into the Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
So that's pretty damn cool.
One of my all-time favorites.
Yeah. And also a shout out to Ross. I hope he gets feeling better and gets back.
Feel better,
on
man.
Yeah. Get healthy, get rest, drink lots of water. Shout out to Nick for recording a little clip for us, even though he couldn't appear on the podcast. We appreciate him supporting us and sending us some love. Shout out to both the gentlemen on the other side of the mic, Birdfinger and Zeb. Thank you very much. Find them on Twitter at the online stuff. We are the Hawkscast.net podcast. Find us at Hawkscast.net and Seahawks Twitter. We're at Seahawks Podcast, Seahawks Forum. We wish you all a great day, a good evening, and a Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.